My first piece of advice would be to stay away from the capsule machine. So at the current state of the game, the capsule machine is only temporary. This means that if you buy something here, it will only last for 3, 7, or 30 days. And in reality, I feel like that's a waste of BP because for 2.5K and sometimes 3K, you can buy a lot of other beneficial permanent items. And definitely that's a better strategy. Because yes, you can keep on buying the capsule every single time, every week, but at some point you may take a break from the game, and when you come back you will be left with no BP, no items, and it will be discouraging. So it's better to start collecting permanent items as of now. When it comes to the best gear, there are a couple of options. But I will share my recommended path to take to reach the best potential. When it comes to weapons, I recommend getting the lethal weapon, which is a 6400 BP weapon. The reason behind that is that those weapons have this special ability that grants you attack against users, which is 2% extra damage. This means that every 100 HP you will do about 2% extra damage, which is 2 HP, which is decisive. And I think for this amount of BP is definitely value. So get those items, but obviously their abilities may not be something that fits your gameplay. So to be able to circumvent that, after you buy your weapon and you take it to a level where you're happy with it, you go to upgrades and you just buy a different ability. But keep in mind, after you buy this ability, you cannot revert back to the right click that the lethal weapon provided initially. So this is something you have to consider. When it comes to clothing, I prefer getting limbs that are multi-class. So if we scroll down to limbs, we'll be able to find certain limbs that apply to every single class. This is crucial because fuses play a huge role in Brawl Busters, especially the +3 fuses that cost a lot, and you may only get on level 45 or from fuse boxes. Now if you buy those limbs and you take them to +5, I believe that is enough. Taking them to +7 is going to take too much time, and it will rob you from all the potential that you could have had. And I think +5 is a decent amount of levels to keep you satisfied. So if you look at my gear, I have my limbs at +5, and they have +3 fuses applied to them. Critical damage fuses are crucial. If we look at my locker, normal critical damage would be 200%. This is 3 times the damage that you would have done through criticals. Now those fuses add extra 60%, which is pretty much 3.5. So if my ability did 20 damage, now it's going to do 3.5 times of almost a bit more than that of its damage. So it's going to do about, I guess, 60 and plus damage. I feel like this crit fuse is definitely stronger than even getting your weapon to +10. It has a lot of potential. You may crit many times during the fight, and this could infinitely boost your gameplay. This is why you have to keep them on a fuse that applies to every class. So if I took them off, I can bring them over to Rocker, and therefore I can be competitive on every class, regardless of my weapon. And I feel like this is something you also want to do. But when it comes to general clothing, if you're not going to be playing every class in the game, I recommend getting local armor, which is just rocker hats and just their own class-specific pieces of clothing, because they're 5 times cheaper. And I feel like taking those 10,000 pieces to 5s and 6s and 7s is, again, robbing you of a lot of potential. You'll be left with very bad armor for most of your experience when you play the game. to only reach plus 7s very late. So I would prefer just getting those local pieces of armor and only limbs that are unique class. So if you do take a look at my blitzer here, you can see that my top is for the blitzer. There you go, top is for the blitzer, and then the limbs are for every class. And I feel like that's the best way to approach that situation. And lastly, I would like to talk about the boxes and the keys that you obtain from the game or you can purchase in the store. To begin with, I would just recommend ignoring all the item sets that you see here because they are on the timer and they do not offer fuses. So upgrading them or putting some fuses on them will be pretty much a waste of BP because they disappear in a couple of days. So again, no sane person would ever buy any of those sets, and I would also recommend against them. Now when it comes to those boxes, this is where all the juice begins. As you may know, you get blue keys from boss battles, you get red and purple keys from team death matches and so on, and I will tell you my preferential way of using them. When it comes to blue keys, I would recommend to not get BP coupons because they cost 450 BP and the results are as follows. There's 2 results which lose you money, there's 1 result that brings you a small profit margin, and there's jackpot. And jackpot is 1000 BP. So in the end, even if you get lucky, you're gonna have a really small profit margin. And at this point, it's definitely not valuable to buy the BP coupons because it does not necessarily bring much to you, BP wise, and you may lose your money. I feel like 70% of the time you will lose your money or just break even, which is not even beneficial, so stay away. Lucky keys, it's a great concept, but it costs too much. It just costs 1000 BP, and I do not see how anyone would buy this. And you also use your purple key for it, which is, I guess you trade a key for a better key, but you pay 1000, which is way too much. Before I get to the boxes, I want to explain the mechanic, which is if you buy in batches, it's cheaper. So 1 costs 29.5, but 10 does not cost 290,000. It's a bit cheaper. It applies to every box. So when you buy boxes, always buy them in batches because it will save you BP. And that's obviously beneficial. Fuse hats and fuse clothes are good in theory, but they are late game in my opinion. You do not want to buy them early on because it's a lot of BP that you're wasting and there's a really small change that you're experiencing. So when you have plus 7s, sure, buy that, but right now keep your BP for something else. Fuse limbs are insane. Buy fuse limbs, please. Even if you get the plus 2 fuse limbs, you get the crit damage ones, you will have 40% extra damage, which is already really good. It's already as if you upgraded your weapon at least twice. That's really good. So buy this, and you may even get the jackpot. And I will tell you, I've got the jackpot, and it's actually 7 pieces of plus 3 limbs, which is insane. I used 4 of them to get my crit damage, and I have 3 of them left. And you also get those fuses plus 3 on level 45. I think you get 2. So maybe you can, if you get unlucky on 45, you can buy this box. But I would still recommend buying this box on any level. Because again, there's only one way you get unlucky, which is this, the first option. But then any other option benefits you greatly. If we're talking about boxes, there's only one box that really brings you value. Let's discuss. So firstly, there's purple box. It gives you 5000 BP only, and every other item is useless. They all sell for 15 BP, and they're not beneficial. Now, if I would buy a purple box for 20 charges, that's 5000 BP, and that's also 20 purple keys gone. And there's no guarantee that I will get 5,000 BP even if I roll this 20 times. Definitely not something that you are promised, so there is a chance that you'll just be losing tons of BP on this and not benefiting in any light. So I would say to stay away from purple boxes and just collect purple keys. Yesterday I sold about 200 purple keys for 4K, and that was a stable income that I received, and without gambling my money on this maybe beneficial but maybe not purple box. I mean, for the sake of the video, I can open 10 of them for you and show you that theoretically, so there's 7 items that you can get, and I'll show you that BP is really hard to obtain, so let me quickly demonstrate this. There you go, so that's that. So you mostly get those accessories, which again are very bad. Maybe they can be quite cute when you wear them, but for the most part, it does not bring anything to your gameplay. And you can always buy them in the shop. There's no point to waste thousands of BP to open purple boxes. So as you can see, I'm not going to get the BP because there is a possibility that is more rare than other results. There you go. So just don't do that. If you get purple keys, just sell your purple keys. That's the way to do it. Now, when it comes to red boxes, this is a gamble, because if I do buy 10 of them, let's say I buy 10 of them, it costs me about 6,000. So for me to benefit from this box, I must get 20k, 5k, or the costume. Otherwise, any other result, and there's tons of them, will never bring my money back. And I've opened about 100 red boxes, and maybe I've received 20 pieces of those clothes, but I've never touched the set 20,000, and I've got 5,000 ones. So when I opened 100 of those boxes, I only benefited by 3k BP, and that was before they changed the price of the box. So right now, I would again recommend staying away from the red box and pretty much selling up the keys, or if you're feeling lucky, open them, sure. And then lastly, we have the blue box. Blue box is pretty much gambling. It costs you 1,000 BP to get in. Obviously, if you buy as a badge, it's much cheaper. And the results, they are good. Those golden weapons, they sell for 2k each. So if you buy 10, you would have to get at least 4 of those golden weapons to get your money back, which is insane. The fuses, they are good. They cost a lot and you get a lot of them. So if you are in a dire need of fuses, I would recommend opening the blue boxes. And obviously there's those huge BP coupons, but it's not really valuable because the chances of this BP coupon is probably like 1%. So you would have to mathematically open 100 blue boxes, and 100 blue boxes would cost you pretty much as much. You would get other results too, but other rewards too, but again, I feel like this is up to you. This is neither valuable nor bad. I'd say this is still a bit better for you than any other box. So blue keys you kind of keep and use for blue box if you want to, or you can just sell off every key. Obviously keep a small amount of blue keys for fused limbs, but that's as far as I would go with that. So thank you for watching. If you have any other questions, I will address them in the next video, and see you next time.